Hey everybody, I'm Oren Pellick from Lawtrades, back as always with our weekly news update, joined by my good friend here, Matt Margolis. Matt, tell the good people how you doing.
Living the dream, man, every day.
Amazing, amazing. And for those of you who are seeing this in video, not on our podcast, the background is a bit different because we're having a heat wave here in LA. I'm at my girlfriend's house. She's been kind enough to let me use it here to record. I've lost all power in my apartment, so... her necklace collection is fantastic, as is her planting, so I will let her know. Anyway, let's take a look at what we're covering this week. We're talking about a new law that went into effect in California regulating the fast food industry. Ireland has handed down a punishment to Instagram, and we'll be taking a look at a crazy warrantless surveillance program that I'd never heard of. Plus, we're talking a little bit about Justice Alito and what's going on with work friendships. So let's dive in here. The first story is yesterday, Labor Day, was signed into law here in my home state of California. A new law that would set up a 10-member council that will kind of regulate the fast food industry in the state. So they'll be dealing with minimum wage issues. They'll be dealing with labor standard issues. And it sounds like it's a big win for the labor movement.
Absolutely.
Something we've been talking about a lot here.
I don't think there's been a day, well, that's not true, but I think there's been most episodes we've talked either about Elon Musk or the unions. So it's true.
Our two bells.
I think 2022, 2022 is the year of the union. I mean, we're seeing it with Amazon, we're seeing it with Starbucks, big movement by corporate effectively to kind of dissuade the union push. Yeah. And this is a step, I think, arguably in the right direction. Whether you're pro-union or anti-union, seeing better labor standards is always great. Seeing people, at least wages, move in the right direction, so folks are living appropriately, right? I think is a good thing. And I think even yesterday, after this was signed, I don't know if it was in California or maybe it was just in relation to the fact that it was Labor Day, I did see a number of pro-union demonstrations done, I think in New York, maybe also in California. And it's quite a sight to see in 2022. This is the big push. Yeah. This is the big thing.
And especially, first of all, especially for fast food workers who are historically some of the most exploited workers in the economy. And not only that, but kind of like a side note here, there's something called the JOLTS, which is basically the Bureau of Labor Statistics tracking of how many job openings there are in the economy. And if you saw the most recent one for July, there is 11.2 million job openings currently in the economy, which is 2 openings for every 1 employee who's looking for work.
Oh my gosh.
So what that means is, the power is currently in the hands of the workers. And I think that is a huge reason why you're seeing this labor push right now.
I couldn't agree more. I remember, but I recall everyone coming into the market around 08, 09 when the market has crashed. And it really was an employer market because you're just trying to find work. And you were seeing such a flip, a true 180 from that time period where it's truly, and I think it's going to hopefully, as well as I will say this, like I think Gen Z has done a great job of pushing forward on the rights of employees. So I do think this era will be known for the rise of employee. I guess what's the best way to put it? The rise of employee
standards, rights,
standards, rights. I think that's the best way to do it. Yeah,
so hopefully there's some lasting things here. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to the next major story here, which is over in the EU. We've talked about this before, but there's something called the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, which is a lot of basically laws that any big tech name operating in the EU has to abide by. And kind of a rare instance, Meta, specifically Instagram, has gotten a pretty major fine under this law. And it has to do with their usage of children's data, basically. Ireland led the charge on this, the IDPC. They fined them 5 million euros, which is about $403 million. And the inquiry really focuses on selling that data to businesses And also, what is the last little thing here? Oh, there was something about how when a minor basically sets up an Instagram account, its default is public, not private, which is another thing that they're going after.
That's fascinating. I don't know if I've ever seen. So first off, for the listeners here, GDPR, if you are any company doing any sort of business that touches Europe, you are adhering to the GDPR. And even companies that are stateside probably have GDPR compliance in place, just in case they do. It is the big data privacy regulation that's in place in Europe. So that being said, I don't know if I've ever seen I feel like it's always just like the boogeyman in the back, like you're going to violate the GDPR. You don't even realize you violated some privacy standard, and all of a sudden you're getting hit with this massive fine. I've actually, and this shows I'm not personally a privacy lawyer, but I've never seen, at least in the news, a fine of this caliber. So I think it probably is at some level I don't want to say performative. It's basically, hey, everyone in the market, we're going to be fining for these kinds of things. We are going to be enforcing the GDPR when necessary. This isn't just a boogeyman. This is we're good. It has fangs. I know there's more privacy regulation in the mix coming out of the EU. So fully expect more aggressiveness, more fines, more enforcement. So
absolutely,
fascinating. Now, that being said, what about TikTok? He's probably doing the same thing.
Yeah, they are doing the same thing. And actually last year, the Irish DPC, which again, let me take a look, that stands for the Irish Data Protection Commission, the IDPC. Last year, they opened up an investigation into TikTok for essentially the same thing that Meta is doing, right?
There you go.
Which is selling children's data, right, to businesses. But also, they're taking a look, and this is something we've talked about, in weeks before, selling all data of EU members, of EU citizens, back into China. I guess there's some standards in how you transfer data out of the EU. So it looks like Ireland is taking the lead here on a lot of data privacy issues, and is really enforcing the GDPR.
Interesting. It's very interesting.
All right, well, let's move on to another data privacy issue here. Our last major story
of the week.
Absolutely wild. There's something called Fog Reveal. It is a tech tool that the Associated Press has just uncovered that I guess a lot of law enforcement agencies have been using. Now, Fog Reveal is being made by some company called Fog Data Science out of Virginia. And what it does effectively is it agglomerates a whole web of privacy data, or of private data, from targeted ads to your Waze data to all sorts of things, and creates what law enforcement calls a pattern of life map, which is a way to analyze your location over the last few months. And they've been accessing this data not only for super cheap, but most of the time without a search warrant.
That is unbelievable.
That's basically
unbelievable.
That's
can you imagine? Could you imagine looking at that and being like, based on all of the things you do on a daily basis, I know exactly where you're going, where you're sitting, what you may be doing. Law enforcement's not going to be thrilled to find out that I've been sitting on my couch for months. For months. They're not going to appreciate that.
I have the most boring pattern of life, let me tell you.
There's some police officers looking through and be like, wow, that sucks. He's doing nothing of note.
But again, it opens up this whole can of worms, right? Like, what are the laws catching up to where technology is at? That's always kind of been an issue in this digital age. What is our privacy? There's a whole mess. There's a Pandora's box, effectively, that all this opens up, and this just plays right into it, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we could go back a couple weeks, which we're all still feeling, is the striking down of Roe v. Wade. I mean, this is the fear we've all been talking about, right? Like, you could track someone or figure out a way to know that somebody is going to get an abortion out of state or is getting an abortion in state. And now law enforcement knows, or at least has a feeling, because they have this life map, if you will. And that's frightening. That's absolutely frightening.
And beyond, and yeah, that in and of itself is frightening, right? You can track, Google emails, your Google Maps, your all that, and then gain access and prosecute, like you just mentioned, like we talked about a few weeks ago. There was a case in Nebraska where where a mother and a daughter were prosecuted through that. But also, if I'm an immigrant and law enforcement in my town just wants to track me for whatever reason, if I'm, I know. Under the Bush administration or years past, a lot of Muslim immigrants were being tracked for potential terrorism, whatever. There's a whole host of cases I can think of where you haven't done anything wrong. And, law enforcement is just tracking your pattern of life map, which is insane, very Orwellian.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at some of the smaller stories this week. The first one is The New Yorker did a very interesting deep dive into Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito and his kind of jurisprudence, taking a look at his ideological roots. Pretty interesting stuff there. Much of the focus was on how Alito kind of wants to overturn a lot of the Warren Court's legacy.
Sure.
It was kind of like a foundational era in his youth and something that he kind of feels very strongly about. So it's pretty interesting.
It is interesting. He definitely has left an impact on the court that will be seen for years to come.
Absolutely. And then the last little thing here is The Hustle is asking the question of whether we're seeing the end of the work friend, right? With so much of us working remotely, working hybrid, we're not making the same friends, or at least in the same way at the office as we did kind of.
This is what The Hustle needs to realize. You have to be as annoying as I am, and you'll make friends. You'll make enemies too, but you're going to make friends. You're going to make
even
friends.
over Zoom.
Oh my gosh! I tell you what, at Lawtrades, I'm sure there's at least 3 people I can think of off the top of my head that are like, Matt has abused Slack. Matt has abused Microsoft Google, or sorry, not Microsoft Google, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams. Like Matt has abused it. So you can still make friends in the workplace. You just have to be like me and understand that you're also going to create enemies, and that's how you do it. That's my corner today.
You and I have never met in person, and we've been doing this over the internet for several months now, and I think it's been going pretty well. So there's that too.
I think so. We're not enemies yet, Norman. And then those episodes.
We're not enemies yet. Exactly.
At that point.
Well, until then, this has been a pleasure as always.
That's always Oren.
Yeah.
Talk to you.
And we'll talk next week.
Talk to you soon, Oren.
Yeah.